Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering, what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Whistle Talk. Here we are, episode number 3 of season 2, starting the new year out right. Before we begin, just a quick reminder for those that are out there, we're kind of hitting our off-season time now, so clinic time is coming up and all that other fun stuff. So please make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. I got some information that'll be coming out. So once I get that information about some clinics, you hit those like and subscribe buttons, you'll get notified on when that information gets pushed out to you all. And hopefully we can catch up at one of these clinics and things like that. But hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons. Let's get that algorithm pushing out our message to all the world to hear. So joining me today, I have with me a very, very interesting individual, somebody I'm very excited to have on tonight and discuss some stuff about. Miss Brenda Hilton is coming to us from officiallyhuman.com. Brenda, thank you very much for taking the time out to join us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks so much for having me on. And I want to make a point to your off season. I feel like there is no off season for officials anymore. So, I feel like now the real work starts in the space of officiating once a season is over. So I applaud anybody out there that's a football official.
Yep. And a lot of the officials, as we all know, are not just football officials. That's my primary sport. That's where I stick with officiating. But I know a lot of officials that are getting into the basketball, wrestling, swim, all those other winter sports that are going on right now, too. So, yeah, you're right. There really is no off season going on.
Yep.
So, Brenda, CEO and founder of Officially Human. Feel honored having you on. Thank you very much. I see that gray and scarlet going on in the background there. So you got to be excited for Monday night.
Yes. Wow. I didn't even realize how that was placed there. That was very strategic, and I didn't even know it. So that's pretty cool. Yes. It's a big night, Monday night. So very excited. So, hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I think anytime that we can get in front of people, either through the radio, a podcast, or, in person, and talk about what Officially Human is and why we do what we do. A little bit of background about Officially Human. I've spent 23 years in collegiate athletics, from mid-majors all the way to very high Division I. And most of that time has been spent with sports officials and of all sports. And what I found is there's this, first of all, it's a very, very cohesive group. And then how do people become officials? Why do they become officials? How do you get assigned? How is pay rates determined? And through the years, I just found that there's some really, really cool people in officiating, and people don't realize a lot that if you need an electrician, if there's not one in your, tight group, there's one somewhere. And every trade, every profession is represented in officiating. I don't care what sport it is. There's somebody out there if you need help. And so in 2019, I decided, wow, I know there's a shortage. I know there's a retention problem, but the bigger problem in my mind was humanizing them and the treatment of them, and figured, well, let me see if we can at least do something about it and start spreading awareness. And I'll tell you, Mike, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes a long time to, and you always have new parents that you're trying to educate. So when we first started, our focus was really on the youth level, and we've had some success at the high school level and the collegiate level as well. But there just was nobody else out there doing something about it. And when I'm out and I'm doing talks with people, with organizations, I say, you all are spending a lot of money on recruiting and training, but you're not spending the money on retention. And,
Yeah.
sometimes that's just a simple conversation to let people know. So that's kind of the history of Officially Human and why I started it.
No, and I love the title of it too, because I mean, I'm on season 2 now. This is, I think, episode. I'm in the mid 40s now in the episode, and I can't tell you how many times it's been reiterated. Hey, we're human. We make mistakes. We're going to hear it from other humans, but we're human beings. We do make mistakes. We do have bad days that sometimes lead into a bad evening or a night. So we got stuff like you mentioned going on outside of our officiating world that unfortunately could possibly carry on or carry over to our officiating world, as much as we try for it not to. But we're human beings, just like anybody else has stuff going on outside of work. It sometimes does affect their work day. And I know that I've made some mistakes. I'm a school teacher, so I'm not allowed to make mistakes, but I know that I've made mistakes. I know that I'm a father, and I know I've made mistakes there, and I'm a husband, and I've made some mistakes there too. So it's part of being a human being, and understanding that. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, a lot of the parents, sometimes the coaches, sometimes the players don't understand that. Okay, we're humans. We're going to make mistakes. So it happened. So I think the name, it caught my attention right away when I saw that. I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We went through a few different names before we landed on Officially Human. And that's what, when we first started, I said, we have a really cool name and we have a cool logo. So do you want to talk to us? And do you want to know why we're trying to humanize sport officials? And the growth that we've experienced over the last couple of years, and again, the name has really helped people resonate towards that name. And I'll give you a quick story. A couple of years ago, I was at an airport at an Enterprise rental car, and I had an Officially Human shirt on, and this woman turns around and she kind of points at me, and she goes, "You know what? It's about time somebody's doing this." And I said, "What?" She goes, "Well, we're all human." I'm like, oh, yes, yes. So, but let me tell you
absolutely.
what the mission is, and if you
Yeah,
like
please.
sports, and so that's the funny part, is the name can just start a lot of different conversations alone. And if you can get somebody and get them just understand that, hey, you know what, his child's really sick today, but he's here at your game. Just
Yep.
to continue to push that message that everybody is human and nobody should be treated like some of you guys are treated on the courts and fields.
Yeah. Uh, Now, your background, you've been involved in athletics for 20 plus years,
Mhm.
officiating
I have
or
never
coaching or
officiated.
administrating.
Nope. As a matter of fact, when I started so I started at the Mid-Continent Conference
Okay.
back in 2000, and then it became the Summit League. And then I did all sports there, and then I switched over to the Big Ten, and I really focused on men's basketball officiating. And that
Okay.
was where, during those years, that's where I really got to understand deeply the officiating space, and how I would travel with a crew to a game, and I would hear their travel stories, where they were the day before, where they go in the next day. And I mean, you get to February, and that season is a grind.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you've had a couple bad games, or your crew has had a couple bad games, then you're constantly like, it's okay, man, it's okay, like it's good, you're good. And then I switched over to football, which God bless all football officials, because I had no idea the depth of football officiating, and how many people there are involved in one particular, any game. And at first I was very intimidated by the sport, because I just
Okay.
didn't know these positions. And over the years, I've gotten to know it a lot better. And what you find is officials are officials are officials. It doesn't matter what sport they're passionate about it. And like you said, when we were before we started, now you have so many officials trying to do other sports as well. And
Hmm.
maybe that's part of the shortage, that they're trying to help out. I don't know the thought behind that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly, I personally don't know. Like I said, football has always been my sport. It's football is something that I've had going through my system for, gosh, 35 years now. I've been involved in some capacity as a player, as a coach, and now with the stripes on. So I've done it from a number of different facets in the game of football, where I can't say I've done it so much in the other sports, but I am still heavily involved with other sports. I coached my son and daughter's teams at different levels. I ran a lacrosse league at one of our neighboring towns. So I've had the pleasure of dealing with officials for a very long time in my life. And just now I've truly gained an appreciation. Well, probably I'm an official now. I'm going into 9 years. So I'm starting to gain a more of a respect for what was going on the officiating side, as obviously as I matured and got older, because as a young buck, as a coach, I thought I knew everything, and would remind the officials that I knew everything, even though I wasn't even close. But I was young and cocky at the time. So,
Sure.
and pretty dumb too. So in hindsight.
Well, and I think that that falls into what the problem is overall, and we can focus on youth sports a little bit. Some of my conversations with people at Positive Coaching Lines, they're having the same problem. They're having a shortage of coaches. So then maybe people don't really want to coach, but they know their child's not going to be on a team. So is that carrying over to, I don't even want to be here, I had to run from work, and this guy or gal just made a bad call, and it's whatever. But I think in totality, everybody's having this problem, and
Yeah.
we have to kind of work together. And I said it before, officially human's not going to fix this alone, but working with organizations across the country and raising awareness and taking a top-down approach, that's going to help. That is really going to help. And I think some of our partners that we have, they've really bought into what we're trying to do, and they want to try to make a difference. They don't want to have to deal with throwing fans out. Or so our approach is kind of do it on the front end before the season starts, and then do some subtle reminders throughout the season, and maybe we'll make a difference.
Now, you mentioned your partners, and I got your website pulled up here, and I noticed that you just partnered up with the NEC, the Northeast Conference, and stuff like that. How does that work with not just the Northeast Conference, but just partnering up with the different conferences in general for what your mission is?
Sure. So what we did, and I've been in conversations with the NCAA since we were founded,
Okay.
and had a lot of conversations with them, and how do we fix this problem? And we knew there was a recruiting and a training problem, so they've partnered with a couple of different groups for that. And so we showed them our Elevate Respect program, and this was back in 2021. And they approached us and said, we would like your Elevate Respect program, which is a 20-minute course. It goes through kind of identifying an official, humanizing them on the front end, and then takes the learner through the process of, okay, these are how games are assigned. This is what people, expect. Everybody has a role at a game or a competition, and it's sport agnostic. So any sport can, show it to their parents. But they took that program and we modified it to be kind of for the college coach, player,
Okay.
administrator. And they put it on their site, on their LMS. And so every college, university in the country has access to that. Well, then in 2023, we produced a series of public service announcements ranging
Okay.
from 15 to 32 seconds is the longest one. And we approached the NCAA and said, hey, do you care if we reach out to these conferences and offer these PSAs for them to show either, in-game venue or on their streams, their television broadcast, put them on social media? We didn't care. And they thought it was a great idea. So last summer, I really started reaching out to a lot of conferences, and now we have 29 of them. And
Awesome.
we give them our media kit. They can print signage. They can use the PSAs. They can do banners. And some of them have really, really taken it. I think everybody's probably using the PSAs. And what the conferences did, they then disseminate that information, that media kit, to all their member schools. So the conference
Okay.
office uses it, but also the member schools. And that has really put us on the map as far as having, and what we realize is people just want content. They just want,
Yeah.
they don't want to have to think about it. They want to press play, and we were able to do that for them.
Oh, that's great stuff. Now, with the Elevate Respect, kind of talk me through a little bit on what that is and how that works. You said it's a 20-minute type of course. Like, can you explain to the listeners a little bit more in depth about what that is?
Sure. So we offer that course as either a press play version or a interactive version. And the press play version is, the idea is to show it in front of a big audience. So if you want your team's preseason to watch a video about sportsmanship and treating officials with respect, that's the one for you. The interactive one, a lot of places use it for remedial training. So if somebody gets thrown out of a game, they can take
Okay.
that and they actually have to pay attention and answer questions through it. That works really well. We have a couple, we have a volleyball club and a soccer club that use that for that purpose. And they will charge a fine to the parent or the coach that got thrown out. So there's a cost involved with it.
There you go. Now, you were mentioning that you're working a lot with the NCAA. How about with the youth level and possibly in the high school level? Are they jumping on board with something like this?
Yeah, slowly but surely. We have the Illinois High School Association. They are a partner of ours. They have, we also introduced Coach. It's very, coach centric. And what that course does is it's still 20 minutes, but it kind of takes you through a coach's career. And
Okay.
two coaches compared to each other. One, they have very close records, but they have very different approaches to the way they manage the game and treat the officials. And so the NCAA also has that on their platform. So we just finished that. Our biggest youth partner is called Triple Crown Sports, and they are nationwide. They host about 200 events a year. Either they host them or they have partner hosts. Hundreds of thousands of kids at collectively at these tournaments. And they were very early adopters of what we do. So at their events, we have a few a year where we have activations, and an activation at an event looks like, if it's a softball or a baseball tournament, we set up a table, we have a banner that will snag parents, coaches, fans, players coming by, and we'll have them sign a banner saying, "Thank you, umpires." And then we'll hand out stickers.
Nice.
But what happens when you pull them into your booth or your table and they're signing, you can slowly talk about, "Oh my gosh, did you guys know there's a shortage of umpires or officials? And, if everybody can just cheer loudly for the officials, that's great." And it really does kind of put you in front of them and able to have a conversation with them.
Oh, that's excellent. Just the awareness that you're getting out to people is fantastic with that. So now we mentioned before that you've done some different surveys across a couple different states. If you don't mind, I've got a copy here from the website, from the officiallyhuman.com website. Everybody, make sure you go out and visit there, and I will have the information on the show notes at the end. But on here, it's one of the resources is the data, and let me go to share my screen here. Our data.
Nice.
So listeners out there can see the survey that we have here. And we were talking before we hit record here today. The survey here shows results from 2020. So you said that this survey happened in 2019 and then it was all put together in 2020. Am I correct in saying that?
You are. We reached out to the National Federation of High School and had a couple conversations with them and asked them, if we develop the survey, can we send it out? Will you connect us with high school associations? And we had 19 high school associations send this survey out, and it returned 19,000 responses and about 1 million data points. So that's a snapshot of all that data.
And with this, and again, we talked pre-production here. The results are 2020, so a reminder to all that are out there. The survey was done basically pre-pandemic, and I could say post-pandemic now with COVID and everything. These numbers, how do you think these numbers are from beforehand to afterwards? You think we're at the same level, or you think the numbers have decreased in some levels?
I think we're very close in just about every category. The one stat that I'd like to share with people, and I think maybe this has improved a little bit, but only 12% of the respondents were under the age of 34. Mm-hmm. And so, that tells you that we have an aging group, and how do we get younger officials, but more importantly, how do we keep them?
Yeah.
And I know the Federation did a survey 23, I think it was 2023, and like 50,000 officials had been lost across the country, and that's a huge number. And we kind of anticipated, especially once COVID hit, that a lot of officials wouldn't come back. And I don't know how accurate that number is, even because it doesn't factor in a lot of college officials, and it doesn't factor in youth officials. That was more the high school level. So, I mean, everything else is probably pretty close to the same. If you look at the NASO survey, it's probably close, especially when you're talking about the treatment and who's to blame for how people are treated. So I think it's probably the same. And I think our survey said that 70% of officials do it for the love of the game and to give back to the community. I think that's probably the same. That's pretty close.
Yeah. That I think is probably I would say has gone up in my personal opinion, because everybody that I seem to talk to, that is a number one in their category. So that is definitely one of the numbers that jumped out at me. But I also want to go back up to what you were talking about with the age bracket, and that's the 50% of officials were over the age of 55 years or older. And I think that's a number that we really, like, as a society, everybody needs to understand. And we're not getting any younger for the most part. 50% over 55 and only 12% under 34. That's a big gap right there in between. And like you're saying, it's that retention that we got to really, really focus on through what we're all doing with making people aware. We're getting the younger people, but we're not retaining them. And we do have the older officials, but eventually they're aging out. And so we really need to work on getting that middle group, and eventually those young officials turn into those veteran officials. So really got to work on trying to retain all of them and figure out ways to do it. So just looking at the chart here. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, one thing that probably doesn't get mentioned enough is, how people are recruited into officiating. And I don't know if the stat is on there. It was a really high stat as to how people got into officiating, and it's through a fellow official.
Okay.
It was a really high stat. I can't see that very well, but
trying to see. Yeah, I don't see that one, but the mentor, I know there was something about the mentorship. Trying to find it.
So, and I think that anybody that is listening would probably say the same thing, is they didn't even know about officiating. And the other thing that we find when we're talking to people that don't start officiating until their 30s or 40s, they wish because they love it so much, they wish they would have done it earlier.
Yeah. And that's something that I know there's a lot of programs, and myself, I'm in the works right now of trying to reach out to either high schools or colleges and trying to get the younger athletes involved in what could be their off season, getting them more involved in the community. And And heck, I know on here it does have the third reason why people do officiate is to make some money. For the younger people that are out there, it's a great part-time gig for you if you're in college and involved in maybe an intramural sport or something like that. Go out and get involved into it, because once you get hooked with it, it tends to stay with you. Um,
Yeah, and I think the other thing that gets missed a lot is the life skills that officiating can teach you. And
yeah,
you have to, there's financial literacy in that, because you have to understand you're an independent contractor, and how your taxes work. And then you have work-life balance, and you get a schedule put in front of you, and you accept your games or you decline games. And you know how many people just want control over their own schedules, and you don't get that at Wendy's or Target or somewhere else. They're telling you, and here you are in control of when you work.
I never even really thought about it in that aspect, but you're correct with that too. And one thing that we've always said, just from the coaching side, about how much, and one of the reasons why we love athletics in general, is because it teaches those student athletes how to manage their schedules, to make sure that they're not only the athletes but they're also the students. Well, now here they can take those lessons that they've learned on managing their time and utilize it and put it into managing their time to still stay involved in the sports that they love by becoming an official. And this actually gives them a little bit more flexibility than what their playing days were. So it is something that is great.
And I think too that there's very few officials I know that are not organized. I mean, they know how to pack a suitcase, they know how to travel, they know how, they have the benefits are just, we just forget. We don't tout those enough, because for so many years officials have kind of been in the background, and we didn't talk a lot about the officials and all the stuff that comes along with it. But there's great benefits to it.
Now, Brenda, if I could ask, and I don't know if you'd be able to give me this answer off the top of your head, but when with this survey, when it came out, was it a specific sport officiating group that you were surveying, or was it across the board of different sports?
We had a choice, I think, of 12 sports on there, and they
Okay.
just chose which ones they officiated.
Because I'm just looking at on the bottom here where it's the least knowledgeable fans of the sport and the most knowledgeable fans of the sport. And I being involved in lacrosse, like I mentioned before, that was probably one of the ones where I would say was the least knowledgeable fan base. Because, well, I shouldn't say that in a generality. In my area where I lived at the time, it was a new sport. So either people knew it or they didn't, and most of them didn't. So they were actually the nicest ones to the referees and to the officials at the games, because they're like, I don't know what you called, but you called something. So, okay.
Well, Mike,
Unless it
we've
was
heard
something
that from day
egregious and
one.
violent.
Yeah, we've heard that in lacrosse specifically since day one, that the parents don't really know the rules. So
yeah, so they kind of are just going with the flow, and they're learning as they go with it. And I love seeing on here football being one of the ones where the least knowledgeable fans, because we have so many different levels, and that's what the other people don't understand. What you watched in the playoff game last night doesn't carry over to the game you may watch on Saturday, or especially to that youth game that you're seeing on Friday night or early Sunday morning type games. They're not the same rules, ladies and gentlemen. And that's one thing. And I laugh about this, and it's a joke not a joke, but a story that I say a couple times on my show is, I had a youth coach who was complaining about a call, and I'm like, Coach, that's a Sunday call. And he's like, well, Mr. Official, today's Sunday. And I'm like, you got me. Wasn't what I meant, but it was an NFL call, and we're not in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think the money in youth and high school and now collegiate sports is only going to make things harder for officials, and the accuracy rate, and the accuracy rate of call accuracy rate for the collegiate level and just about all sports is in the 90s. probably mid to high 90s. And people don't realize that. They only realize that one call that went against them. They forget the 30 other calls that went for them.
Yeah.
And I think the more we talk about that, the more we communicate about that, maybe we'll make some strides.
But again, Brenda, that goes back to what we were referring to before with that we're human and that these are things in life. And it's unfortunate, but they say that one bad moment can erase the 15 positive things that you remember. And I know as an educator, we talk about it about our classrooms, how it could be one student changes the dynamic of the 15 or 30 others. And that's unfortunately the one person that tends to be remembered in that class, but all the other good kids that were in the class tend to be forgotten about. And it's unfortunate that it's that way. But when it comes to sports, like you said, you could be officiating the greatest game of your life, and then you have one perceived missed call, because it might not even be a missed call, but a perceived missed call, and that can change how everybody perceived the game went. So it's something that it's life. It's part of understanding it, and we as officials tend to understand it more so as opposed to some of the coaches and the fans that are out there.
Well, and think about what officiating has done for so many people in their day jobs, their careers, their families. You become a more forgiving person because more understanding person because of the way you're treated. And I think if we could just get more people to officiate, they would see that. But part of the problem, and we've talked about this a little bit, is if we get them in, we have to be able to get them hooked in that first 3 years, or they're just done. They won't do it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely I don't know what state it was with baseball umpires. If the coach got thrown out of a game because of heckling the umpire, part of their penalty was they had to umpire games themselves in order to feel the reverse roles and see what the other side was seeing, to give a little bit of an understanding of what was going on. And a lot of times people are like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. I was at the U.S. Soccer Coaches Convention last week, and I was presenting, and in the room was mostly officials. And so we talked about that exact case where, okay, so what happens in soccer if you put a parent out there? And it was interesting the way the dynamic in the room, because some people thought it was great. And then other people said, yeah, but now you're putting somebody out there that doesn't really care about officiating. And are they caring? The kids are suffering. I'm like, okay. So it was an interesting conversation to see how people react to that. But, at least they're trying to do something.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that's brought up awareness. And I know flag football, the boom of flag football that's coming up at the high school level right now. I haven't officiated many of the flag football games, but the few that I've gone to, a lot of the JV games per se are the coaches that are officiating it, and they're doing, and then they see us walk on the field and they're like, oh, thank goodness you guys are here, because I what you guys do, and a lot of them are also in turn the football coaches in the fall time for the boys teams or for the fall football. So they've now seen it from both sides. And I've definitely seen a transition from those coaches of now just that little, maybe an hour a week of being the JV official for the game, of saying, okay, I kind of get what you guys are seeing here. So it's definitely brought a little bit of more of an understanding to them. So
yeah, and think now they have to have they have to know two sets of rules.
Yeah.
And so It's like, hey, you missed that call because it's the wrong, you interpreted the wrong rule. And so maybe that'll help.
Yeah, like I said, I have seen it. It's definitely is helping for some people. For other people, are like, oh, this is easy. I'm like, oh, okay, well, come join us then.
Yeah, it pays great. It pays great.
Yeah.
One of the things another point I wanted to talk about earlier with the so many benefits of officiating. I think if anybody's listening and you think the cost barrier to get into officiating, if that is a barrier for you, reach out to officiating groups, because I know there are so many groups out there that want to help
Hmm.
get people trained and get them the right equipment and stuff. The resources are out there now. They might not have been 10 years ago, but they're out there to help people get involved in officiating.
Yeah, and I'll give a plug. I'll be speaking with Vets to Refs, and I know that they are working with veterans and first responders, and they're going to be on another episode coming up. But I'll be speaking with them, and I know that they are helping basically scholarship. I don't want to speak out of turn until I get all the information, but they're working with veterans that are coming back, basically
Mm-hmm.
to kind of sponsor them, to get them the equipment, to get them the training that they may need, to get them involved. So there are programs out there, that just being one of the many that are out there, like you're mentioning. So there are definitely outlets for people. And I know here in New Jersey, again, due to the pandemic, the state decided, I want to say it was 2 years ago, that people signed up for the course. They had to pay for the course. At the end of the course, the state reimbursed them if
Mm-hmm.
they finished the course. So it was an incentive to, okay, you're involved in the course. And unfortunately, we always have people that don't make it through the course, but this was the state's way of reimbursing them. You made it through the course, now you'll get reimbursed. And now they're hooked and they're on the field with us. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that helped.
Yeah, you just kind of have to grind through it and just get there, and then work that. When I was last week at soccer, I said, "What's the magic number in soccer? How many games do you have to work before you get comfortable?" And they said 10 to 20, depends on the person.
Yeah.
So if you can just get that, it's hard in football too, because you have a season and then you have to wait. Where in a lot of these sports you can work year round in front of
Yep.
fans. So
It's funny because you just brought up that it's a grind at first. Because I'm trying to think of when I graduated college and started in my teaching career. It was a grind at first,
mhm.
and it still is a grind. And I know people that got into the business world. It was a grind at first. So again, it's those life lessons, that's what life is about when you're first getting started. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you gotta really kind of bear down. And then as you get going with it, not to say that it becomes easier, or it becomes easy, but it becomes easier for
Yeah.
you. It becomes routine, and you're in a flow of something. So it's definitely something that you get the hang of. So yeah,
Yeah.
put
If
grinding
you can
through it
stick
definitely
with it,
helps.
grind it through. Yeah, I agree.
100%. So what future goals do you have with the company here and with officially human? Where do you perceive this going in the next couple of years?
I hope very, very broad, but um, we've got a couple other courses that we're talking about developing. We just introduced ER Coach, so we'll start working on the next course. Well, we were founded as an LLC, and we just are in the middle of starting our not-for-profit arm. And
Okay.
we've got some really cool activations that we'll be introducing later this year, probably August. August is the goal. It might be September. Um, we have to secure some funding, which I don't think that. I think we can do that with a couple of the contacts that I have right now, and then just to keep getting people to follow us and understand the mission, get those PSAs out there, get them shown, get people to go through Elevate Respect. I think one of the things I forgot to mention, when we were piloting Elevate Respect, we were very intentional as to who we had to go through it, because we had some friends that weren't, always nice to officials. And two of those people, they are huge officially human supporters, and they will sit in the stands and they will say, "Hey, there's a shortage of," like, they'll defend the officials now, where before they wouldn't. So,
Yep.
if we can just get people to go through the courses, and then obviously we want people to follow us on social media, and it's OFFY human, Offy human, on both Instagram and Twitter, and reach out if you want to talk to us, if you want us to do a podcast with you, we are happy to do it. I've said it a million times. We're not gonna fix this alone, but together, if we could just keep pushing a positive message for officials, I think we'll make some strides.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you could, how can people reach out to you again? Just let's plug all those things once more. I know officiallyhuman.com is the main website.
Yep.
Social media wise,
Twitter and Instagram are offyhuman, OFFYHUMAN. And then my email is brenda@officiallyhuman.com.
excellent. And if any of the listeners out there have any other questions and want to reach out to me, I can definitely reach out to Brenda myself too, and get you any type of information about anything that they got going on. And going through the website, I know there is just tons of information on that website. Again, some resources here, your partners, your team itself. You got the Elevate Respect
Shop.
information on there, and the store. Absolutely,
Yeah.
you got show off let's share this one here. Show off. I see and notice that you've got on that shirt too.
Oh yeah, the t-shirt.
So,
yeah, the hoodie is great. I will say the hoodie is probably my favorite. Right there. Yeah, the black
there you
one.
go.
Yeah. So reach out anytime. We'd love to talk to anybody that wants to talk to us about what we're doing.
Brenda, once again, I truly appreciate you taking the time out today. I'm definitely going to be blasting all of this stuff out, and I'll have you on my social media stuff, and some of the media and the PSAs are definitely going to get pushed out through my sites too. So I'm definitely looking to get the word out, and hopefully we can get some more officials out there, retain some more officials, and help educate the fans, the parents, the coaches about what we all do, and maybe get some to join the dark side.
Right. Hey, and Mike, thank you for having me on, but also thank you for what you're doing to try to educate people more on the rules and what football officials do, because I think it's really important to hear that message as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I truly do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, that is Brenda Hilton from officiallyhuman.com, OFFY human for Instagram, and for Twitter/X, whatever acronym you use for it these days.
Sorry.
No, I still do it myself. So yeah. It's shoot, even AI still refers to it as both. So it's
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So Twitter, X, and Instagram, OFFY human. So you could find the information there. And again, officiallyhuman.com. Brenda, thank you very much once again. Enjoy your Big Ten going into the national championship game this coming week. So good luck to you with that.
Yeah, we'll be sitting in the same chair and probably wear the same clothes that we did the other night. So
there you go.
Very exciting times.
All right. Well, once again, thank you very much. Have a good night. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out, and make sure, again, hit those like and subscribe buttons. Check out those podcasts. Check out my social media, Mike D, the referee, all over the place. Spotify, or you'll find this on Spotify and Apple, but Instagram, Twitter X, TikTok, all those fun things. So we're all out there. So once again, Brenda, appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks.